Greetings, my name is Mike and welcome to my Brewmaster guide. Before I get into it, I just want to remind you that this is not the only way to play Brewmaster, of course. I mean, that's one of the things that makes DotA so awesome. There's so many different things you can do, so just keep that in mind. Brewmaster is a melee strength hero who loves a good fight. I mean, his lore even tells us that he basically had a drinking competition with some guy for 9 days straight, and that he seeks enlightenment through drink. So I'm pretty sure, as you can guess from that, he loves a good team fight, and we'll see why soon. And he's also one of my most favorite heroes to play, and I think it's just because he's so different from all other heroes. I mean, he's not your normal right clicker or your normal magic damage nuker, so it's just really enjoy playing him. And in terms of laning, he can actually be pretty flexible, I think. He can do well in pretty much any lane in my opinion, whether it be safe lane, mid or off lane. However, he does tend to be pretty dependent on experience, so it might be best to send him into a solo lane, like a solo off lane or into the mid lane. Personally, I play him most in the safe lane or in the off lane. I don't really go mid with him though, because I don't think he's a great mid, but I guess it depends on the matchup. On to friends and foes, and since Brewmaster likes to fight so much, he works well with people on his team that also like to fight a lot, as well as good team fighting heroes. Heroes that want to sit back and farm for most of the game, like your anti-mage or your alchemist perhaps, he's not going to do too well with, because they're just going to want to sit back and farm and do that kind of thing, and he's going to want to fight and go in and beat people up. It's just not going to work well like that, because he needs a team to back him up. So any team fighting heroes will do. I mean, like a Tidehunter or a Huskar, anyone that just likes to fight a lot will do well with Brewmaster. Brewmaster can also pair well with supports that help keep people alive, because getting his ultimate off is very important, and the enemies can mess with that. So allies like Dazzle or an Oracle can protect him to help ensure that he gets that big ultimate off, otherwise he just becomes pretty much useless. Even Omni Knight can help a lot with that by giving him magic immunity before he jumps in. And unfortunately, like all heroes, Brewmaster is not good against some of them. Most importantly, he's bad against people that have instant disables. Like Lion and Shadow Shaman both have instant hexes, which can stop him from casting his ulti when he jumps in. Similarly, Skywrath Mage has an instant silence, which also causes problems for him. This is why it's good to have a team that can back you up and help keep you alive when you jump in. He's also not too good against heroes that can kill his pandas really quickly, like a Sven for example, or a Death Prophet, where if they just get caught alone with him, he's just gonna die horribly, something we want to avoid. However, he is very strong against most physical carries because of that 70% mischance that he has. So heroes like your Phantom Assassin or Anti-Mage or Luna, any physical carry pretty much, you can just make them do nothing. It's pretty funny watching a Phantom Assassin jump in and then not be able to hit anything because she's got a 70% mischance. So Brewmaster does excel against those heroes in the early and mid game. However, of course, when they get a Black King bar, it becomes a bit of a problem for you. Alright, let's go through his abilities and I'll explain what they do and how you should use them. His first one is called Thunderclap, and he basically just slams the ground, dealing damage to nearby enemies and slowing them as well. This is a really good ability. If you look at it, everything about it is actually pretty good. The damage, the slows, the duration and the cooldown are all pretty decent. The only issue with this one really is the mana cost, because Brewmaster tends to have mana issues, but luckily we have a talent to help us out with that. So this ability has a 55% movement slow on level 4, which is actually insanely powerful. I'll go ahead and show you here. I've got boots on the Phantom Assassin here. I'll slow her, and look how slowly she moves now. It's down to 159 move speed. That's actually really powerful. So with this ability, you want to blink in with the blink dagger and then try and land it on as many people as possible, because you want to obviously damage and slow as many people as possible. And if you hit them with the slow, they're not really going to go anywhere. I mean, it's so powerful, as you saw. His next ability is called Drunken Haze, and it pretty much involves him throwing some beer on someone, which makes them miss and also get slowed a bit. Now it has a fairly short duration, but also a fairly short cooldown, so you can just spam it on people the whole time. Preferably the enemy carries, because it just stops them from right clicking. I mean, it has a 70% mischance, even on level 1, which is insanely strong. The move speed is also pretty nice, but only really when it's maxed out, because a 10% move speed slow is just not that great. So nothing really fancy to show off here. I'll just put it on Phantom Assassin and she'll miss me quite a bit. That's all there is to it really. But did you see how many misses that was? It's crazy. Also, the slow component of this is actually quite handy because it can help you to chase down the enemies. I mean, it's got a pretty decent cast range. So in combination with this and phase boots and blink dagger, you can actually catch up people pretty nicely and then slow them even more with your Thunderclap. His third ability is called Drunken Brawler, and it's a passive. It has two components to it. It gives him a chance to land critical strikes and to evade attacks as well. Nothing too crazy here really, I mean the chance goes up pretty nicely from level 1 to 4. But the cool thing about this ability is that if you don't attack or be attacked for a certain amount of time, 10 seconds on level 4, you actually have a guaranteed chance to land a critical strike on your next attack, which I think is pretty awesome. This also works the same for the evasion component. If you don't get attacked for a few seconds, the next attack against you will be a guaranteed evade. This is really nice, mostly in the laning phase, because after a few seconds you can pretty much guarantee a critical strike on the enemies, which allows you to trade right clicks pretty well. Finally, his ultimate ability is called Primal Split, and it's the core ability of the hero. When you cast it, you split up into 3 little pandas who have their own unique abilities. I'll go ahead and cast it here, and then I've got these 3 little guys. I'll just pause it so we don't run out of time. The first panda is the Earth one, and he's all about disable and tankiness. So his first ability is called Hurl Boulder, and he pretty much just throws a rock at someone, which deals some damage and stuns them. It's got a fairly short cooldown, so you should be spamming this on the enemies whenever you can, preferably on the heroes that you want to kill. He also has Spell Immunity, nothing too fancy there, and Demolish to deal bonus damage to buildings. Also, if you have Aghanim Scepter, he gets the Thunderclap ability, which works the same way as your hero's Thunderclap ability. The second panda is the Storm one, and it's all about the magic. His first one is called Dispel Magic, and it pretty much just purges some buffs in an area. His second ability is called Cyclone, and it works very similarly to Yule's Scepter. You click on someone and then they go up into a cyclone for 6 seconds, which is actually really powerful. So with this ability you should be spamming it on the enemy hero that you don't want to deal with, because of course they're invulnerable while in cyclones. So if there's a very scary bristleback that you just can't really kill at all, just constantly throw him up into a cyclone, deal with the rest of his team, and then focus him later if you get the chance. Also, the cool thing with this is that if you cyclone someone and then you want to bring them down, you want to remove the cyclone, you can actually use Dispel Magic on them, your first ability, and it'll cancel the cyclone early. His third ability is called Windwalk, and it basically just gives it invisibility. And also gives bonus damage when attacking while coming out of his invisibility. And it gives you bonus move speed, which basically if someone's trying to run away from you, you can use this ability and then catch up with them and then cyclone them for your team to kill. And if you get Aghanim Scepter, you also get the Drunken Haze ability, which works the same way as it does on your hero. And the last panda is the Fire one, and he's all about the right click damage. As you'll see here, his attack damage is higher than the other two, and he also has Permanent Immolation, which just deals damage per second to nearby enemies. And if you get Aghanim Scepter, he also gets the Drunken Brawler ability, which behaves the same way as your hero's Drunken Brawler. So you might be a bit scared by the amount of micro that's involved in this ability, but it's really not that much. When you cast the ability, all 3 of your pandas should be selected, with the Earth Spirit being the first one. So what I normally do is, as soon as I cast it, I use the stun on someone to disable them, and then I cyclone someone that I don't want to deal with, and then continue to right click. Then I'll alt tab through the whole time, stun people, and continue to cyclone as well. That's pretty much all there is to it, really. And then when it ends, your hero will appear at one of the pandas. So the thing about this ability is that you don't want all of your pandas to die, because if they do, your hero just dies then, and you have to wait till you respawn. So just keep an eye out on your pandas, make sure if there's only one left, try to get it out of the fight, just make sure it survives. This is of course also a very good team fighting ability. I mean, it's very good at disrupting the enemy team. You can stun 2 people and you can dispel magic, it's just all about the team fight. You're not really going to be able to get a rampage with this ability, but it's all about helping your team to kill enemies. So I just wanted to show off the Dispel Magic of the Storm Panda against the Necrophos's Ghost Shroud. So we have a Necrophos who uses Ghost Shroud, and we can just be like, nope, we can end this Ghost Shroud early and then we can attack him, which I think is pretty awesome. I think this ability is actually pretty underused or underappreciated, but it is actually very powerful. It's only a basic dispel unfortunately, but there's still a lot of spells that it works against. And in terms of skilling his abilities, I would say you must always max out the Thunderclap first, because it's just such a powerful ability, which I may have mentioned once or twice. Then you can get a single point of Drunken Haze, because the miss chance is constant here. It's a constant 70%, so there's no real need to max this ability next. So after maxing the Thunderclap, you should max out Drunken Brawler, because we really want to increase the chance to crit and to evade here. I mean, 10% is not that much, so value point's not really going to be that helpful to you. So max his ability after your Thunderclap. And of course you should always skill the ultimate whenever you can. Next, I just wanted to go through his talents and explain which one I think you should choose when. On level 10 he gets plus 3 mana regen or plus 30 damage, and these are actually both quite appealing because, as I mentioned, he does have mana issues, so I usually take the mana talent, but the 30 damage is also really nice, so maybe if you have a Crystal Maiden on your team, you can take the damage talent, but I would recommend the mana regen one. On level 15 he either gets plus 15% magic resistance or plus 75 Thunderclap damage. For me, I always take the Thunderclap damage because it's an extra 25%, up to 375 damage on that thing, which is really powerful. The magic resistance can be nice if you're getting focused a lot by magic, but the main point of the hero is to use your ultimate, in which case magic resistance doesn't really apply. So I think it's very situational. If you're getting focused a lot, then take the magic resistance, but otherwise take Thunderclap damage most of the time. On level 20 he either gets plus 20 strength or plus 2 second Thunderclap slow, and these are actually both pretty appealing as well. The plus 20 strength actually makes you really tanky, but the 2 second Thunderclap slow is also very nice because a 6 second 55% slow is just insanely powerful. So I would recommend taking the 2 second slow in most cases, but if you find yourself dying a lot without really getting anything done, then the 20 strength is also very nice as well. And finally, on level 25 he gets plus 2000 Primal Split unit health or plus 140 attack speed. And yet again, these talents are both pretty appealing in my opinion. However, I think you should always take the 2000 unit HP because it's what the hero is all about. Yeah, and the ultimate. Right? You don't want those pandas to ever die because they're each really powerful. So the 2000 HP on each of them makes a real big difference. And the 140 attack speed is very nice, but again, you're not really going to be using it because you're going to be in your ultimate form. Unless you're going for some kind of right-click build, which I wouldn't. So I recommend just taking the unit HP. And on to starting items. A pretty common build that I go on most heroes is a Ring of Protection, Circlet, some Iron Branches, and a Tango. The reason is that we'll build the Ring of Protection into Ring of Basilius, and the Circlet into a Magic Wand. Also pick up yourself a Quelling Blade as soon as possible from the side shop. Personally, I have some issues trying to last hit with him, you might as well. I just recommend getting this item on him in general. And on to early game items, finish up the Magic Wand and Ring of Basilius that I mentioned just now. And you can also go for Phase Boots. I really like Phase Boots because it gives us some nice attack damage to work with, so we hit really hard, especially when we land a crit. And also the extra movement speed from the active ability is really nice because it helps us to catch up with people, just ensure we can get a good clap on them. And other than that, you can just pick yourself up some Raindrops because it's just a really good item in general. And as I mentioned, you have mana issues, so the mana regen is also really nice. And on to mid-game items, and the most important item on Brewmaster is a Blink Dagger. This is because he's going to be the initiation on the team, right? He's going to jump in, use Thunderclap to slow everyone, and then cast Ultimate straight away. Then hopefully the rest of your team follows up. And without a Blink Dagger, it makes that pretty much impossible, so Blink Dagger is definitely a core item on Brewmaster, and you should pick that up as soon as you can. And the other core mid-game item we're going to be going for is Vladimir's Offering. This is because we're going to be building an aura-based Brewmaster, because when he's in his ultimate form, all auras still apply to him or to his pandas and to the rest of the team. So we're going to try and get as many auras going on him as possible to help out the team while we're in the ultimate form. Vladimir's Offering is just a really powerful item in general, really nice to have, so pick that up after the Blink Dagger. You could also build a Drum of Endurance, because we are going for the auras, but I hardly ever see this item anymore. I'm not really sure how good it is. You could go for it if you wanted to. I don't really, because I forget it exists, to be honest, but it's a possibility. And on to late game items, and probably the most important one in my opinion is Assault Cuirass, because again, we want all auras going on him, and it's a really good item in general, especially helps with pushing a lot since it works on the enemy towers. Other than that, I think it really depends on the game that you're playing. You could go for a Pipe of Insight to help with all the magic damage. Shiva's Guard's not too bad, but remember, you can't use items while you're in your ultimate form, so you won't be able to use the blast during your ultimate. And for situational items, I think there are quite a few to go in this category actually. First of all, Hand of Midas is pretty good, especially if you're not going to be solo laning, because as I mentioned, experience is pretty important, so the Hand of Midas can really help with that. For example, if you're a safe lane Brewmaster and you've got a support or two with you, going Hand of Midas, rushing Hand of Midas is actually a pretty good idea, because you want to get those levels going. Next, I think Radiance is actually a pretty decent item on him, provided you can actually afford it. Because remember, in the ultimate form, all auras still apply, so in the ultimate form you can still be burning an enemy team with the Radiance. And also helps with farming a lot, so it is a pretty good item. Just depends if you're doing well enough to be able to afford it. And finally, as I mentioned, stuns and silences are a big issue for Brewmaster, since it stops him from doing anything really. So you're probably going to want a Black King bar in most games. If they have any sort of disable, really, Black King bar is a good idea, because you'll just use that before you jump in, then thunderclap them and cast your ultimate safely. Just remember that there are a few disables that still go through BKB, so be careful for that. You could also get a Lotus Orb to help you out with that, depending on what sort of disables they have. If they have just silences, a Lotus Orb could be pretty decent as well. Also, Lincoln Sphere could also be pretty decent depending on what they have. If they have a single target disable like a Bane Ultimate or a Legion Commander Duel, Lincoln Sphere could really help you out in that situation, but definitely I wouldn't recommend it in all games. And the final situational item, in my opinion, is Aghanim Scepter, because it gives us some nice stats to work with, but it also gives each of the pandas a new ability, which I showed off in the ability demo. This item can actually be really powerful because you can actually cause so much disruption in the enemy team with it. So this is situational because I don't really think it's an item that is classified as core, because I don't think it's really good to rush this item because it's not going to do that much for you. But it can be really powerful because, as you saw, the Earth Panda gets the Thunderclap, which is your Q ability, but its cooldown isn't shared. So you can pretty much double Thunderclap someone if you jump in, use your Q ulti, and then use the Panda's Q. It's just a really powerful ability, I think, but not necessary in every game. And just for some silly luxury items, which you probably won't ever get to buy. Firstly, you could get a refresher orb, because if for some reason the fight's not over when your ultimate ends, you can just cast it again. Not a very good choice, I think, but if you want to have some fun, why not? And also maybe something like Octarine Core to reduce the cooldowns even more, you know? In the early game, you should just be chilling in lane, trying to get as much money as you can from either last hitting or from killing the enemies. Brewmaster does actually have quite a bit of kill potential early on. I mean, that slow is pretty powerful. He has 2 slows actually, which are pretty powerful. So if you can get help from allies, you can get some pretty easy kills actually. You want to just try and farm up your phase boots and then get working on that blink dagger. So in the mid game, once you've got your blink dagger, that's when all the fun starts. Before then, you can still fight, you can still get some kills, but you are the team's initiation. So without that blink dagger, you're not really going to be that impactful in terms of jumping in and killing stuff. Once you've got that blink dagger, you can start the team fights. Just make sure your team is actually with you. Then you can jump in on them, cast Thunderclap, and cast your ultimate straight away. Then use your Earth Panda to stun the person that you want to actually kill on their team. And use the Storm Panda to throw a scary enemy up into the air that you don't want to deal with. For example, if there's a Bristleback that's just really difficult to kill, just use your Storm Panda to throw him up into the air for 6 seconds at a time, and forget about him for a bit. Then when he comes down, and you've dealt with the rest of his team, you can just try and kill him. And since you are going to be paired up with a fairly aggressive team, you should try to get objectives done when you get kills, try to get towers, maybe Roshan, maybe get more kills. You should always be trying to get objectives, because Brewmaster unfortunately kind of falls off in the late game. I mean, his damage output becomes sort of insignificant compared to other heroes. So you should try to finish before it gets too late in the game. Well, that's actually pretty much all I've got to say about Brewmaster actually. He's one of my favorite heroes to play, and I hope you'll actually enjoy playing him too. Please don't be scared or put off by the micro that's involved in his ultimate. It's really not that crazy. Perhaps you should practice it in a bot match or something like that. But it pretty much just involves tabbing between the pandas and using their abilities. So please do try Brewmaster, he is actually pretty fun to play. Thanks for watching, I hope you've actually learned something from this, and cheers for now.